Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. With Jamaicans on alert for a rapid increase in the number of COVID-19 cases, the government may have to use hotels and other facilities as isolation centers. The health minister told a press conference on Monday that 600 rooms are needed. 21 confirmed cases of COVID-19 as at Monday, March 23. For the health authorities, the coronavirus may be spreading in communities undetected. And so it's expanding how COVID-19 tests are being done to include those with no link to an imported case. For example, persons with flu-like illnesses such as pneumonia.
We are testing now all severe acute respiratory illnesses that are presenting to our hospitals. Over the last week, we've tested 36 of these persons. These are persons from hospitals across the country that would have pneumonias, severe respiratory infections, and they have all been negative. This is just a sampling of the population to ensure that we are picking up cases that may be there.
The government has also shifted its position. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says rapid test kits will be introduced.
There are many offers of kits out there, and the reliability of a number of those offers are questionable. And we are very careful to examine to determine that we have a kit that gives a high level of accuracy. We have appointed a small team, and they have come back with a recommendation. And I think we're now at the phase where we can acquire these kits and establish a protocol that will allow approved entities, more than likely to be our public health system, hospitals in the parishes or selected parishes, to administer the test, except that that protocol in the first instance, where someone is positive, would mean a secondary test with the more accurate arrangements that we have.
And so more isolation facilities will be needed, at least 600 rooms.
These rooms, as I said, have to have their own bedroom and bathrooms. We are asking the public for support in helping us to identify these facilities. We know there are a number of facilities like hotels that are now not operating. The government would like to engage them in a conversation around the availability of these facilities. And of course, we'd like to engage them in a manner where we're not paying the normal market hotel rates.
Meanwhile, with the private doctors and hospitals such as Andrews Memorial closing its doors to people with symptoms linked to COVID-19, Dr. Tufton made this appeal.
Avoid or be discouraged from shutting down your operation, because we're getting some of that. In other words, some private practices are closing shop, either because they feel they are not fully equipped to carry out their duties or have one concern or the other. We're saying that if you have an issue and you'd like us to engage you in conversation, we have the numbers. We're available for that type of conversation. And the reason being, to the extent that our private players, who see about 55% of our population on a normal basis, to the extent that they close, it creates a crowding effect on the hospital, which we really would like to avoid.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister had a warning to those who breach the laws that should help to contain the spread of COVID-19. Effective March 25, no gathering of more than 10 people will be allowed. That includes funerals and weddings. Bars and schools will also remain closed.
It is not a time for panic, because panic does not help a serious situation. It is a time, however, for responsible action. The government cannot and is not expecting to be able to enforce on every single person who does not comply. But rest assured, the government will enforce on those who we catch.
In the meantime, the ban on visits to infirmaries will last for another 30 days, and no new cases will be accepted for another 60 days. A 14-day ban for both visits and new cases was initially issued on March 13. Mr. Mackenzie, which is the local government minister, Desmond Mackenzie, adds that isolation areas for persons with COVID-19 are being identified in infirmaries.
And to make available at the Vineyard Town Golden Age Home and the Clarendon Infirmarys some 30-odd rooms to facilitate social cases from our public hospitals.
And the coronavirus pandemic, as it intensifies, mining operations in Jamaica may be scaled down, leading to possible job losses. Details in this report.
Jamaica's mining sector has started to feel the impact of the COVID-19, and as such, uncertainty looms over job security in the sector. Noranda Bauxite in St. Ann reported to the Union of Technical, Administrative and Supervisory Personnel, UTASP, that it is looking at cutting costs, which includes laying off staff. Now, General Secretary of UTASP, St. Patrice Ennis, says the bauxite company has arranged a meeting with the union to discuss the matter.
Noranda Bauxite in St. Ann is experiencing some difficulty. This has been happening for some time now, but it has been exacerbated by the COVID epidemic that we now have worldwide. And the company has expressed its desire to embark upon some cost-cutting measures, and one such measure could be layoffs. Now, it is always the union's priority to see as best as possible how it can keep jobs. And so we are prepared to engage with the company.
It's understood that the company will also be meeting with other unions on the matter. Approximately 400 employees are represented by the different unions. UTASP represents some of those employees. Mr. Ennis says his union will look at ways to minimize job losses.
And we are going to sit down with them and see what are the best measures that we could employ at this moment to mitigate the company's costs and at the same time do not be burdensome to the workers. And that there are myriad approaches that we could take as we have done this before. And the last thing we would want to consider is how is people not having a job to go to.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
There are concerns about a number of high-ranking officials globally testing positive for COVID-19. But what about local officials? Shamela Pullen reports.
Several high-profile politicians around the world, including countries like Iran, Spain, Italy, the United States, and the United Kingdom, have tested positive for COVID-19.
In the past 24 hours, we got word that a member of this chamber, Senator Paul, has tested positive for coronavirus. And the husband of another member, Senator Klobuchar, also tested positive.
British MP Nadine Dorries, a minister in the Health Department, also been tested positive for the virus. Germany Chancellor Angela Merkel and Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau are also in quarantine because they came in contact with persons who tested positive. Locally, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton has been doing interviews, meeting people, and holding press conferences. Dr. Tufton says he's aware of the risks involved. However, he said it can be a challenge not to do the rounds for tours, meetings, and other activities related to managing the nation's response to COVID-19.
If you want to provide the encouragement and the motivation and the leadership, you have to interact with the critical players, and our frontline workers do it every day. And I think it's important for us to identify with it.
Some persons have pointed out that the Prime Minister's press briefings have had over 20 persons in one space. But despite the challenge, Dr. Tufton says he has taken enough precautionary measures to minimize the risk.
The visit to St. Thomas would have involved some risk, but the team provided some advice. I mean, I did not go into the restricted zone. I was at the post, the military and police post. It gave me an opportunity to interact with some of the persons who were in the zone at the border. But again, you know, the observing of social distancing and the personal hygiene protocols were applied.
Beyond that, he also said that he has also taken a holistic approach to his health.
I get up early in the mornings and I either run, ride, swim, or a combination of those. I try to know my health status, which is, you know, doing my annual physical. And then in terms of dieting, I try to balance my diet.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us. We have more stories right after these messages. Welcome back, and we're continuing the news. 8 people were murdered across the island yesterday, and 5 others were injured. The incidents took place in St. James, St. Catherine North, Kingston Central, Hanover, Westmoreland, and St. Andrew South Police Divisions. This follows a series of attacks which killed more than a dozen people on the weekend. More than 300 persons have been murdered since January. And in sports, the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games have been postponed until next year because of the coronavirus pandemic. The event was due to begin on July 24 and will now take place no later than the summer of 2021, according to the International Olympic Committee. President of the IOC, Thomas Bach, said he came to an agreement with Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe earlier this morning. The Tokyo Paralympic Games will also be postponed until 2021. And that's the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.